Jennifer had been tormented by a dream demon when she was in her early 20s, and after the demon was cast out by her church friends, she thought she had escaped the terror that haunted her every night. But the truth is, she only escaped her tormentor, but not the torment, because years later, a newer, stronger, and more evil presence would find its way into a now 30-year-old Jennifer's dreams. And this presence just might be an ancient demon that goes by a familiar name, the Incubus. It had been 7 years since the Minnesota girl had moved into a haunted apartment and a demon had latched onto her soul. She hadn't thought about the experience in years, and the entire ordeal had faded into her memory to the degree that she was convinced it was all just a dream and nothing supernatural. Her life had gotten busy. She had a successful career and a bustling personal life. She didn't get to church every Sunday like she did when she was younger. She didn't think much about the terrible experience she had years ago. That is, until one day, she had a terrible nightmare. This was a dream so frightening, it made the older dreams pale in comparison. Jennifer would go on to describe the dream. She said that the dream started where she was in a field, walking through with an umbrella, but it wasn't raining. She claimed she had an overwhelming feeling that it was dry, that the air was dry, the ground was dry, everything was starving for rain. She prayed for rain, but nothing. Everything was so dry that dust chalked up from the ground and she began choking on the dust. It burned her throat and she felt like it was turning her insides into ash. Jennifer fell onto the dusty ground and writhed in pain as her insides became coated with a scorching black dust. It was almost as if it was evil dust, turning her insides rotten and blackening her soul. Now, Jennifer has had nightmares before, but what made this dream stand out was that she could feel physical pain in the dream, something she normally cannot do. The only other time she could feel pain in her nightmares was when she was tormented by the dream demon 7 years ago. In this dream, while in the field, Jennifer tries to run out of it, but she finds herself face to face with an axe-wielding maniac who appears unaffected by the hot, ashy dust around them. Behind the maniac is fresh air, blue skies, and Jennifer's path to freedom. But the maniac won't let her pass, so she runs in the opposite direction into the cloudy ash. The scorching of her soul becomes so intense that she flees deeper and deeper into the dust until she can see nothing around her. Soon, the dust becomes so thick that it becomes solid, like a film or membrane closing in on her. She's suddenly enveloped by this noxious membrane, and the membrane begins to smother her. It surrounds her and cuts off her air, leaving her to breathe nothing but the noxious fumes that exhale from this living membrane. The membrane soon turns into something with shape, a ghost-like figure. This ghost-like figure wraps its ghostly tendrils around her writhing body as she squirms in agony from its noxious horror. She struggles to get loose, but its ethereal tendrils creep into all of the cavities and crevices in her body. Soon, its ghostly limbs are wriggling deep inside of her, twisted and prodding, rubbing and caressing her body from the inside. The torment goes on and on for what feels like an eternity. Although, outside of the dream, it only lasted one night. After being violated by the ghost, she would wake up, sheets on the floor, her clothes tattered, and her body with scratch marks and bruises. The nightmares got worse and worse. Each night her dreams got more violent, more painful, and each morning she'd wake up more disheveled and bruised. The dreams disturbed her because of the obvious similarities to the dream demon of her youth. This all occurred back in the early 1980s before the internet, so Jennifer didn't have any way to easily look up what was happening to her. She could go to the library, but she didn't know where to begin. Her library didn't have a section on paranormal activity. She asked the librarian for books about ghosts who haunt and seduce women in their dreams, but the librarian gave her a funny look, and an embarrassed Jennifer fled the library, knowing she revealed too much. Jennifer wasn't much of a reader anyway. She did, however, like to go to the movies, and around that time, several movies came out about dreams and people being tormented in their sleep. But another movie that Jennifer had seen around that time was a film called The Incubus. She was watching it on VHS with her friends, which its plot of a shape-shifting demon who uses dreams to get inside the heads of his victims. This struck a chord with Jennifer, who was instantly brought back to her nights of writhing on a bed endlessly in torment and her very own incubus torturing her in her own nightmares. She went back to the library and looked up books on the incubus. In her research, she concluded that it was in fact the legendary Incubus who was tormenting her at night. In her diary, she writes, "My research has concluded that I am being haunted by something known as an incubus. An incubus is a male demon in folklore that seeks to have sexual intercourse with sleeping women. Parallels exist in many cultures. In medieval Europe, union with an incubus was believed to result in the birth of witches, demons, and deformed human offspring. Legendary magician Merlin was said to have been fathered by an incubus." Throughout human history, many women claim to have encountered an incubus, visiting them at night and ravishing them in their sleep. The idea of a dream demon seducing women in their sleep has persisted across many cultures and throughout history. There could be thousands of women who've had this experience. A number of different variations on the concept of the incubus are seen around the globe. In German folklore, the Alp is an elf-like demon that torments people in their dreams and had been blamed for a variety of diseases. In the Chiloé province of Chile, the Trauco, according to the traditional mythology, is a hideous, deformed dwarf who lulls nubile young women and seduces them. The Trauco was blamed for many unwanted pregnancies. In Ecuadorian mythology, there's the Tintin, a dwarf who seduces women by playing the guitar while they sleep. In Hungary, the Liedertz is a demonic lover that appears at night as a fiery light. In Turkish culture, the incubus is called karabasan, a jinn who descends upon sleepers at night. Folklore and mythology in parts of South Africa, Ukraine, India, Sweden, Brazil, and the Amazon rainforest all have their own version of the incubus. Walter Stevens writes in his book Demon Lovers that some traditions hold that repeated sexual activity with an incubus or succubus may result in the deterioration of health, an impaired mental state, or even death. The Latin word incubus means a nightmare induced by a demon. An incubus may pursue sexual relations with a woman to father a child, as in the legend of Merlin 9, which was the first popular account of demonic parentage in Western Christian literature. In the Malleus Maleficarum, a 15th century treatise about witchcraft, an exorcism is presented as one of the ways to overcome the attacks of incubi. This led Jennifer to seek out her old church group friends again, and they gladly trekked out to her house and got to work. That night, the incubus once again came for Jennifer. But the church group was ready, with their Bible passages and anointing water, ready to rain down heavenly salvation on Jennifer's writhing, twisting body. But as she began to move and wriggle around in the bed, her friends felt this presence in the room this time, something they did not feel last time. They all said it was terrifying. They were overcome with the feeling of an actual presence in the room, swirling around and dancing about the room. The girls ramped up their Christian chanting and ritual. They read passages harder and louder and with more zeal than before. They tried everything they could to call the Holy Ghost into the room to come in and heal Jennifer's tormented soul and kick that incubus back to hell. But the incubus was too strong. After a long night, Jennifer woke up, this time feeling that the ritual only made the demon stronger. Her friends vowed to come back the next night and try again. They did. However, this time they brought some company. More members of the church showed up, including the pastor. Once again, Jennifer went to sleep while the church group sat in her room, patiently waiting. And sure enough, around 1 a.m, Jennifer started to moan and writhe in her sleep. The group sprang into action, giving it everything they had. The exorcism went on for hours and hours, and in the end, they didn't cast out the demon. They came back again and again, and this went on for several weeks. Each time, the dreams got worse, and Jennifer fell deeper and deeper into despair. Most unusual about this entire thing was that Jennifer remained asleep the entire time. She was trapped in a supernaturally induced slumber, and even when they tried to wake her by shaking her, she didn't awaken. During this whole ordeal, Jennifer was experiencing it from inside her mind, in the form of an awful nightmare. The way she described was like this. In her nightmare, she was walking in a barren field, devoid of all life. Scorching hot air and a dead, sizzling landscape. The ground was so hot that it burned her feet as she walked. She fell to the floor, burning alive until her skin melted off her body. Then the ground opens up beneath her, and lava oozes from the ground. The red-hot lava covers her body and scorches her muscle off the bone. Then the lava oozes into every orifice in her body and burns her from the inside. The ground would crumble beneath her and she would fall into a volcanic pit of lava. Except that she kept falling deeper and deeper into the earth, until she eventually landed in a place so hot that the fire burned purple. And then in the fire, she sees a figure standing there, a figure that keeps getting closer and closer. She can feel that this shadowy figure was the source of this immense heat, and he burned 1,000,000 times hotter than the center of the sun. Each time she had the dream, the shadowy man would get closer and closer to her, but she would always wake up just before he reached her. Jennifer would later say that the burning sensation she felt in her dreams felt like a real burn, but a very intense one. And when she's covered in lava in the dream, she said it felt like her skin was actually burning away. She believed she felt genuine physical pain because while she was having the nightmare, the demon was entering her and damaging and scorching her spiritually. She was being violated on a spiritual and physical level, and the lava in the dream world was her mind's representation of the fiery demon entering her soul and damaging her from the inside. She felt her soul was rotten, chewed up waste, and the reason that they couldn't get the demon out is because her soul had become so spoiled spiritually that it was beyond repair. The pastor asked when the last time she's been to church, and she said she hadn't been for a while and she's been busy. So he recommended a diet of good old-fashioned church, and Jennifer resumed her Sunday visits to her church. Within weeks, the dreams started to get less intense, and eventually they faded away without much fanfare. Jennifer's life eventually got back to normal, and she still goes to church regularly. Now in her 70s, Jennifer still says her prayers before bedtime every single night.